Hi everyone, this is Dee Dee sharing another story with you from the internet. This one is from Reddit, Banjo, titled, Sasquatch Destroyed My Family's House. A lot of people are going to view this story as creative writing. It isn't. For many people that have traumatic experiences, there are plenty of outlets and support groups. Not for me. Everybody calls me a crackpot on the few occasions I get drunk enough to talk about what happened. And I don't appreciate that. This is a real story and a real event that caused a lot of turmoil in my family at the time. We were a small family. When I was 12 years old, me, my dad, and my mom lived in and managed a large deer lease in Arkansas near the town of Mena. My dad and I were skilled outdoorsmen and made a good chunk of change hunting pigs on horseback. The population had grown out of control at that time, and they were viewed as pests. Not only did you not need tags to hunt them, but you could get paid on up to $50 per pig. The meat is great for sausage too. So it comes as a surprise to my father and I when the pigs around our property suddenly began to vanish. At first, we thought it was our neighbor 20 miles west, strong-arming our profits with his sons as he had before. But after my father went to his ranch to confront him about this issue, he came back ashen-faced and wouldn't tell me or my mother what had been discussed. All he said was Bill wasn't the reason for the shortage in pigs, and that me and my mother were to stay in the house. Of course, being the curious young retard I was, I woke up before my dad, saddled my horse, and went into the woods. I rode the perimeter of our property, and as before, I didn't find a single pig, but I did find something else. At about noon, I came to a large clearing in the forest. Then, clear as day, what I first thought was a child stepped out right in front of my horse and I. I quickly realized this was no normal child. As it stood staring at me, I noticed that although it had a very human-like face, with what I can only describe as slightly mongoloid features, it was covered in black, dark brown fur or hair. We just stared intently at each other for what felt like an eternity. Then I heard something huge crashing through the forest in our direction. Without the slightest command from me, my horse bolted in the opposite direction. I could hear it, hot on our heels, snarling and screaming. Eventually, we got some ground on whatever it was when we hit open meadow, and it abandoned the chase. When I got home, my dad wasn't furious at me as I expected. He could tell something had happened, and after I explained what I'd seen, he hugged me and said the experience was punishment enough, and that I wasn't to go in the woods without him ever again. It wasn't at that point I was at all opposed to this. That being said, this was far from over. About a week later, we were sitting at the table enjoying my mom's Gordon Ramsay-esque style jambalaya when the phone rang. My dad excused himself from the table and went to answer it in private. He came back into the dining room and he told me, "Get your boots on and go grab your saddle. Something happened at Bill's place." Without question, I obeyed. And despite protests from my mother and demands for an explanation, we were soon going full gallop towards Bill's ranch. We didn't particularly like Bill or his boys very much, but in the Ozark Appalachian areas, we have sort of an unspoken law that if your neighbor needs help in any way, you are to oblige them. When we got there, the situation was complete chaos. Bill's wife, Maggie, was knelt on the porch sobbing her eyes out, and Bill and his two sons were scurrying about, loading firearms and filling backpacks full of provisions. My dad dismounted and ran up to Bill and asked him what was going on. Bill said, "My youngest was taken by someone. Maggie saw it. She said she was out feeding the pigs and somebody came up from behind the shed and grabbed him." "What did the person look like?" Bill gave my dad a frightened look. Then he said, "You know damn well what it looked like. It isn't a freaking person." My dad gulped and told me to go help Bill's boys get ready. We were going hunting. After Bill called the sheriff, they got on their four-wheelers and followed us into the forest. The five of us got about 15 miles into the woods before we saw the first one. It had likely been following us since Bill's ranch, and I only got a small glimpse of it before it snatched Bill's oldest son, Grant, off of his four-wheeler and ran off with it. It was big. This thing was easily 8 feet tall, and it moved like an Olympic sprinter. We chased it for another 200 feet before it dropped Grant. He was in a state of shock, but alive. Thank God. Bill took Grant and his other son back home, but my dad and I decided to pursue the thing. We chased it for miles, but soon it hit deep ravines that were impassable for even our horses. We shot at it. My dad claimed he hit it several times. If he did, the thing didn't slow down a bit. We rode back home around 1 a.m. After checking on Bill's family and writing out reports for the deputy that had finally shown up. Even after we made a huge stink about the issue, the sheriff's office didn't do anything about the problem. To my knowledge, Bill's youngest son, Tommy, was never found. Their official statement was, it was a gang of homeless people that had taken up residence in the forest, and we were to, quote, try and avoid them. Yeah, right. Nobody bought it. About 2 weeks later, they attacked our house. I was watching NCIS with my dad at about 9 p.m. when we heard what we first thought was heavy hail. Our house at the time was a metal building, and if you've ever lived in one, you know how things tend to echo all throughout the house. My dad went to the window and quickly reeled back. He bellowed at me to grab my rifle. We both looked out the window, and to my horror and his, we saw about 8 of these huge hurling rocks at our house. They were all together, non-stop hurling rocks. We stuck our rifles out the window and shot at them, and when we did, they would hit the tree line temporarily. But then they'd be back 10 to 20 minutes later. It was about 2 a.m. when we heard hard banging on our door, and we knew they were trying to come in. Lucky for us, near the kitchen, my dad had dug and constructed a tornado shelter the previous year. If you're familiar with Arkansas, you know it's smack dab in the middle of Tornado Alley, and we regularly get devastating F4s and F5s. We knew the door wasn't going to hold, so we all piled into the small cellar, and my dad deadbolted the heavy steel door. They did indeed get in. All night we listened to them wrecking our house. For hours and hours, all night, me and my family sat completely silent, all of us, including my mom, gripping our guns tighter than a vice grip. We were praying to God that they didn't find us. They gave up and left around 10 a.m. When we emerged from the cellar, our house was nearly demolished. Things were strewn everywhere. The TV had been hurled against the wall and made a huge dent. My dad's air compressor had been crushed like a tin can. Understandably, we packed up the truck, put the horses in a trailer, and made a beeline for my grandparents' house in Dallas. We were never the same after that. We had to sell our beloved horses. I had to make the hard transition to city life, where kids made fun of my accent and would just bully the crap out of me all the way up to high school. Luckily, I overcame it all. And I'm about to get my master's next year. I'm also happily married and expecting a daughter soon. Those creatures not only wrecked our house, but they also wrecked my childhood forever. To this day, I'm a dedicated Bigfoot researcher, and I've worked with all the big names, including Todd Standing and a man I very much admire named David Paulides. I know there are some squatchers out there who are trying to preserve and protect Bigfoot, but I always carry a firearm when I'm out in the woods, and if I ever see another one, I'm blowing its hairy freaking head off. That was the story. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I want to leave you with a Thanksgiving message. I want to let you know and just convey with my mother always said on Thanksgiving Day in her family prayer. It ain't the legs of the table that hold it up. It's the family around it. May your plates be full, your hearts be light, and your laughter abound at your table. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, from all of us here at Sasquatch Hypotheses. And thanks for listening to the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks again for listening.
All right, good evening, folks. I tried to run this show live, and my fantastic internet provider is messed up again. So it caused all kinds of havoc with my live show. So I'm going to record this show. Now, thanks again, Dee Dee, for that reading. It was a great story. Just a second while I fix something here. So, okay, now, because I'm actually running this live with the panel on Discord. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to the panel on Discord for discussion. What did you all think about that story?
That's all anybody wants to do. Somebody does something wrong to you, then you're going to go back and you're going to annihilate them and everything else. That's the only thing we know to do. And they're only protecting. They took the kid. They should have never took the kid. I agree. Right off the back porch, that's ridiculous. And everybody's going to fight. They're going to fight when something like that happens, regardless.
I like to say, just keep in mind that Bigfoot are predators too. And yes, men are just as bad. And so in that, we have a lot in common.
Well, I think that the big thing is that this story highlights the fact that Bigfoot do take and eat people. And some won't, some will. I don't know what that percentage would be, which one will do which. But they are like, I forget if I was Darcy or Amy said that, but they're predators, and they found a kid in the back porch. Now, my problem is I think that I would classify these as rogues, since they came onto the people's back porch. You know what I'm saying? If your kid is out in the middle of the back 40 in a pasture, then that's one thing. But when they're coming right up to your house and stealing your kid, that's a whole different mentality and temperament.
Makes you wonder if those creatures had been planning it for a long.
Yeah, if that family unit, if that family was in a situation where their home, their back porch was in an area where, and we know that that's common. Squatch can just come up and snatch a kid. That I would agree with Rick. That was probably a rogue unit that was, probably just pissed off at everything. Ain't no pleasing them, just pissed off.
I'd actually like to talk to this guy and, interview him and find out if he knows, were these all males? Were there males and females? There was 8 of them. I don't think that you had 8 males and then 8 females were left in the back. I think this was probably the entire clan, group, whatever, that came to attack the house. And I would be interested to know how many of them were females, and if they were all grown, were there any juveniles, etc., and so on. Because if they were all grown males, I'd say this was a group of rogue males that are hunting together.
I got a question. At the beginning of the story, the pigs got missing, correct? I'm just wondering if the wildlife was not plentiful and they were just taking what they could just to survive.
Well, there were, supposedly, according to the story, the place had plenty of pigs. But then they all started, the numbers started to diminish. And you have 8 Sasquatch hunting the property. They hunted it out, is what they did. There were none left.
So do you think they were just plain starving and not enough wildlife around, and they were just picking what they could, easy pickings, so to speak?
I think they came out there and there were pigs everywhere, and they were enjoying just eating pig anytime they wanted to, day and night. And then when they started running out, they started getting hungry because they were being gluttons. And now all of a sudden they're hungry, and they started looking elsewhere. That's my opinion anyway.
That's what I was getting at.
And I think that no matter what, you have to remember they are definitely big time predator.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree that probably some Sasquatch run into a lot of issues with humans, but I don't think they all do. And I don't think all humans start shooting at them as soon as they see them. I mean, we have people who see them all the time.
That's exactly right. They don't run into issues. I think it's the isolated issues, the confrontations. And yeah, you're exactly right. You know, we're not all bad. They're not all bad.
Thing is, in this particular situation, in this scenario, in this story, this was pretty much, I mean, the way that it reads, this was pretty much the first encounter with these things. You can consider the first encounter being the pigs being taken, but that's just they're becoming aware of them being there. The first encounter was when they took the one guy's kid, and then they went and they never said that they went to hunt him down and kill them all. They were trying to find the kid, you know, and they never found the kid. The father of the kid actually went back to the house after his other son got grabbed off of his ATV. You know, he was probably like, well, hell, this is dangerous. And the neighbor guys, the guy who wrote the story and his father, they continued to go after the thing. This was their first encounter, and it went horribly wrong for everybody, you know, and it was pretty intense.
I can barely hear anything. You guys, the volume is so.
Yeah, and that you know, Rick, that is, I mean, I believe I believe it's a real true to form case. It happened. So we're discussing the legitimacy of this case, and I thought it was supposed to be the retaliation aspects tonight. That's what he clarified, but apparently it's not. But yeah.
Hold on.
Case,
No, it was just about Bigfoot's attacking families. Can everybody hear me okay, or is everybody having issues with volume, or is it just Amy?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I think it might be a volume problem on your side, Amy, then.
Well,
It's
I have
turned
to
up as high
say,
as it'll go.
my sympathy goes to the 12-year-old child who, you know, when we're 12, you're pretty much 3/4 of the way before you're on your own. And it seemed like the child was so happy living and running that dealies with his family, riding horses. And even though it wasn't his fault, it's a natural reaction for a parent to want to protect their family, their child. You know, there was a neighbor helping a neighbor, but this 12-year-old child had to give up everything and, you know, move to the grandparents' house. Who knows if it wasn't until they were old enough to go on their own, you know, go to college, go to work, get married, and never really be with their family again like they were back then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that dynamic is true, and you know, I've had them dynamics just like you just described it. With my family, the closeness, you know, with my family, my wife's family, we had the round table. Everybody in the neighborhood came to it. I mean, it was like you was welcome. If you was one of us, you was welcome. If you was from the hood, you was welcome. And it was just like that. And then you know what? Then it was one day, D, then that was all gone. That was gone. And it's no more. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. And so the child that was taken off the back porch, that child was never found, or there's no accounts or no follow-up on that child.
No hair, no, how do they say that? Couldn't find hair or hide of them.
Or hiding her hair, yeah. So, has anyone, Dee Dee, have you looked to see if you could find a sheriff's report or anything like that on the incident? Because it wouldn't be listed as Sasquatch, but on the kid missing.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, and you know what? Rick brought up a good point just now. I would be real curious just to see the spin they put on that case. You know how they put a different spin on them? It seems. I would love to know the spin that they put on this.
Well, she talked about the spin at the end, that they said that they had run into a bunch of homeless people and to avoid them.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that is. You're right. You're right, Rick. That was the spin at the end. You're right. And when I heard that, I was like, boy, isn't that true to form? Doesn't that seem to be the norm? You know, when it's really known what happened, and then comes that dynamic spin where, you know.
Well, that was just the local popo that put that spin on it. But, you know, if the local police don't believe that they exist, sheriff's department, whatever they happen to be, then they're obviously going to make something up because they have to finish their report, and they can't really put craziness in their official report, you know.
Well, no, Rick. I think that they do know what's going on. So they would put the hokiness, you know, they would put that into it. I think that they do know exactly what's going on, and they're probably told or obligated to throw the whole case off track. I would think that the local popo probably knows exactly what's going on in the area.
Well, we can assume that they may know. What I'm saying is that if they don't, if these are genuine, you know, law enforcement officers who do not believe in Bigfoot, have never seen one, don't believe they're around there, when they're filling out their official report, they're going to put something in there that makes more sense, you know, because it's an official report. Whether they know or not, that's a whole other issue. I'm saying if they don't believe in Bigfoot, they're going to have to put something that makes sense as a conclusion of a law officer.
Yeah, and then they would do that even after the family explains to them exactly what happened. These were Squatch. This is exactly what happened. So they're still going to lie and put that negative spin on it. Even though the family is telling them what happened, they're still going to blatantly lie.
Well, here's my thing. Let's assume that these police don't believe in Bigfoot. And so they're like, it wasn't a Bigfoot. Don't care what they say. They're crazy. Here's the problem. A kid is missing. They can't argue that a kid is missing. You have a family telling you that some non-existent creature took the kid. In my book, if I was running that sheriff's department or whatever, there would be a murder investigation.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they know exactly what's going on. And then they're, you know, I think that's played out time and time again. And it sounds like it was not all that long ago. I mean, they reference NCIS. So what was the time frame for this? I'm guessing mid 90s or what, early part of the last decade?
I don't know. I mean, he doesn't say. It doesn't say. It just says it was when I was 12 years old. I mean, he was very basic about the, you know, story.
Yeah, I just know, you know, I was never a fan of, you know, but I know NCIS, you know, sitting around the round table back in the hood, you know, that was you know, all the family watch that. I just know that, you know, that was like mid 90-ish.
Well, the NCIS ran up until mid 2000s, I think, maybe even late 2000s.
Yeah, that's why I just said that, and that's why I just made my statement. Mid 90s to the early to mid part of the last decade, which was the 2000s. Yeah, that's why I said that. I know that was that time frame. So
right.
That really is not all that long ago.
Well, you know what I was just thinking that just came into my head? I was just thinking, do you all remember there were a couple stories where the Native Americans had issues with, you know, kids going missing, things like that, and they took matters into their own hands. I wonder if they ever really got any answers, you know, because they would go on group hunts to go. It was mainly to try to find the missing person, right?
Go ahead, Darcy.
I was just going to say that he said that he was finishing up college and he's expecting his first kid. So I would assume he's about 23 years old now. So you could probably count back from there.
Well, whenever it was posted, do you know when it was posted, Dee Dee?
It was posted early, I think it was early 2000s.
No, that can't be correct because that would be, he wouldn't be 12 years old and NCIS was on if it was posted in 2000.
I'll go check.
Because that would have been, he would have been 12 back in the 80s and NCIS wasn't around back then. But let me get back to my point. As an intelligence analyst, if I get this thing coming in and somebody's, wants me to analyze this situation, I would say, okay, because part of being an intelligence analyst is taking what's there and also what is not there and figuring out what that means. If I find out that the police report says a bunch of homeless people, that they had an altercation, encounter, whatever, with some homeless people, and yet a child is missing, and then I go and I look and there is no other report on investigating the fact that this child is missing, and you have these people saying Bigfoot did it, that tells me that the police knew that the Bigfoot were there, because otherwise they would have said, why are these people making stories up? We have to find out what happened to this kid, and they would do an investigation.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right, and that's a good point. That's exactly right. And the whole other dynamic to it, going out on the four-wheelers, and the other kid was snatched off the four-wheeler and drugged 200 feet or 200 yards, whatever was said, and then let go. What is that? That's pretty. What do you feel about that, Rick?
Go ahead, Dee Dee.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected. It was posted 5 months ago.
That's more like it. Then I forget who said, Amy Dorsey. You're right. This would be put him 12, like right around 2000 when this incident happened.
Yeah, and that lends credence. That's about right. I mean, that's what we were saying.
I wonder if the family was investigated since the child went missing. Did it?
Well, this is a big enough incident that it's worth doing a little investigation to see if there are any other reports of the police investigating this family and looking for this kid.
Yeah, like you just.
I'd like to interview the guy because he's a Bigfoot researcher now. Oh, by the way, let me make a correction for you YouTube viewers. When he said that he's worked with big researchers like Todd Standing, Dee Dee was being nice. In the original post, he said Fraud Standing. That's not coming from me. I just want to correct it so that we have literary correctness here.
Yes. Hey, Rick, thanks for clarifying that, because when I heard that, I was like, that can't be right. So now that you said that, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, Rick, getting back to what you said, a case such as this, there would have been multiple thorough investigations on all levels and angles. And if there wasn't, then that just proves what you just said. They really know what happened.
Well, I think that the FBI would have probably been involved as well.
And it would be interesting to find out if there are any other people that had gone missing, say. I mean, that neighbor was, 20 miles away, he said?
I didn't know if it was that far because they just rode horses over there and stuff, and it was close enough to their property that they thought they were taking their pigs.
Yeah, 20 miles is a pretty good clip. I mean, that's...
But they lived and ran a deer lease. So I want to say that's what it was. But either way, do you think that could be a possibility that that's not the only missing person in that area?
Well, I looked at the area, and Minot, or whatever it was, is pretty much on the edge of a national forest. I think it's a national. It might be a state park, but it's definitely one of those things. Actually, let me look real quick.
I was looking online for any news of this incident, and I found a news report from April 27th of 2017 where a woman and her 2 children and I think an uncle all disappeared in that same area, Polk County. And the mother was found in a creek. The 2-year-old was found off in the woods somewhere. and it looks like they're trying to pin it on a family member, but they're not releasing the cause of death yet.
So, Amy, again, I missed what you said. That was right there?
Yeah, same county, Polk County, Arkansas.
You're saying how many people are missing? Can you post that link to that story?
I posted it in chat.
Not to interrupt anybody, but okay, what I'm getting from this is these things came up, took this kid, and then he said that he was chased by one of them or something when he saw a little one.
No, at the very beginning of the story, he said that he was out just riding his horse around, and a juvenile came out and got in front of him and his horse, and then the horse spooked and took off running, and then the juvenile ran after him until they hit a pasture area, and then it stopped chasing them.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was that. Yeah, that was that isolated event. But then with the family event where the child was taken off the back porch, that was separate. Correct, Rick?
Well, we don't really know. I don't think it was worded in such a way you give a timetable. Go ahead, Ralph.
But the thing of it is, okay, even though he was chased on the horse, these things are sentient beings. In other words, they have cognitive thinking, and they think that they can go up and grab this kid off from a back porch. So that take a little bit of thought to do that. And then they tear up the house at the end.
Yeah, I think that they went back after the father and the son because they continued to chase him. I forget, they said they chased him for quite a ways until they finally gave up. They didn't get home until 1 o'clock in the morning. And obviously the Bigfoot and his buddies followed them back and attacked the house.
Oh, I didn't hear that aspect. Yeah, they'll do that. I'm a firm believer in that.
It's Queen Wilhelmina State Park is what the Mina is on the edge of. Now, of course, we don't know whereabouts. I mean, they say he's in Mina, but they could live, 10 miles outside of town in any direction, and that's just their post office. But the Mina state or city limits butts right up against this state park. So either way, it's covered on 3 sides by state park, really.
And I just looked at the story, and the closest neighbor was 20 miles away.
Well, that's kind of odd. That's the neighbor that had the kids taken that was 20 miles away?
Yes, but I mean, like I said, I'm not real familiar with deer leases, but that's what these people lived and ran, a deer lease. So I imagine that's a big piece of land.
Yeah, 20 miles. I know what Rick's saying, to get that info that quick, but it was 2000 thereabouts. I mean, info could travel that fast, but I see what Rick's saying. That is.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that 20 miles is a long distance to consider somebody your neighbor. I understand they had horses in that, but who was the closest neighbor to them? You know what I'm saying? Where the kid was taken. Were they in town? Was their closest neighbor these people 20 miles away? I mean, I'd like to get a better lay of the land, but because maybe it does make sense in that scenario. But I mean, my father's side of the family lived out in the mountains. They were hillbillies, and I think our closest neighbor was a couple of miles away. But you wouldn't go to the neighbor that's 20 miles away if you had a neighbor 3 miles away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 20 miles, man. That's the distance between cities. Yeah, that's a pretty good clip.
Unless they loaded the horses up in the trailer and drove them over there and then saddled them.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, obviously they had phones. It was 2000, but I'm just saying, instead of calling, like the neighbor that was 3 miles down the road, they called this guy who was 20 miles away. That's what I'm not getting, unless that was both of them were the closest to each other,
Well, if you got a deer lease, I mean, if they're working a deer lease, you would have to have probably close to 10,000 acres or more, and that could stretch out there a good ways, and make it seem like it's.
Well, the other thing is that is a healthy bunch of woods. I mean, because here's the deal: they thought that this neighbor, who's 20 miles away, was the one poaching the pigs off of their deer lease. That means that their deer lease covered 20 miles. That is huge.
Yeah, that's almost unheard of. That is huge. That's almost unheard of.
Unless they thought this guy was driving over to their deer lease. I mean, but there was nothing mentioned like that. A lot of unanswered questions to me. But Dee Dee did ask, and it was a real situation. The guy is a researcher, so we have to believe that it's a real story. It's just that there's probably not enough explanation in there to cover the unanswered questions. Really, that's where an interview would be helpful.
Hey, Dee Dee, let me ask you, or Rick, have you researched the individual at all on an individual basis? I mean, is there much known about the individual?
No, his story was in Reddit, and he doesn't even use his real name.
Yeah, I mean that raises some hiccups. I mean, I'm not saying in a negative way, but we know how all humanity. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is I mean,
Could be a bad memory for him too, in a way. Maybe that was his way of getting it out.
I don't think that the using a different name raises any questions for me. I've probably got a dozen different names on the internet. I mean, one of my names in here is App Jones, which is my middle name. But, I have a bunch of different names on the internet. It doesn't really mean that I'm trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. And he may have not wanted people. Let's say, for instance, he's a known researcher with a website, and he puts this incident up on Reddit, and he doesn't want to have all the crazies coming and emailing him through his website. Could be any reason why he did that, or maybe he made it a long time ago before he ever became a researcher, and he just continues to use the same username. There could be any number of reasons why it's like that.
He had already said when what Dee Dee had read that he had already got a lot of ridicule over it. So I think that's why.
One thing though, he said when Dee Dee read it, he said that the family that called him that got the kid taken, they had him and his two sons had already been on their property and shot some of the wild pigs that were on their property.
Well, they suspected they did. And then when he went to go ask him, the dad came back. Remember, it was described as ashen face, and said no, it wasn't Bill. And that was the neighbor's name. The dad conveys as Bill.
Well, I guess the other thing is they said that the closest neighbor is 20 miles away. That might be driving. They could very well be only 3 or 4 miles if you go through the woods. You see what I'm saying?
yeah, that is true, Rick. You brought up a good point. I mean,
As the crow
it could be
flies.
20. It could be 20 miles to drive around, but straight through the woods could be 3 or 4 or 5.
Exactly, which means they could butt up against, basically right up against the backside of their deer lease and not be that far away.
Yeah, so the clarification is whether or not they drove or trailer them up, drove through the brush. Either way, I think I think the case is worth deep investigation. And I don't know. I know within the community here, the dynamics of it, I believe it possibly could have happened. I think it might really have happened that way.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah. I think it's a one of the standout examples of the aggression and the aggression of Bigfoot and potentially Bigfoot rogues. The only thing, that one juvenile kind of is the only thing that throws a wrench in the works of it being a group of rogues. However, maybe because that one juvenile, he said, was snarling and chasing after the horse. Obviously it was bigger. It's not a little kid Bigfoot. Maybe it was right at the edge where it had been kicked out of its family and it joined the rogue unit.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, that's a good point.
I thought the juvenile stopped the young boy, and then when the boy was on the horse, he heard heavy footsteps. Another one came up, and that was the one that chased him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I thought that what had happened was the thing stepped out in front of his horse and he stopped, and then the horse got spooked and turned around and ran the other way and it chased him, is what I recall happening. Is that what happened, Dee Dee? Explain.
What happened at that point was then he heard crashing coming through the woods, and he was being chased by a group of them. They realized that the little one was running after something might have, been a distress kind of sound to them, and then they started chasing him.
Okay, but I didn't catch that part. But am I remembering correctly that he said the little one started snarling and chasing after the horse?
Was it the little one or was it one of the big ones?
It was the big one, you said.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. I'll just replay it. Let's get this straight from the horse's mouth. Sorry, Dee Dee.
Yeah. Hey, Rick. No pun intended. But yeah, I thought.
Hi everyone, this is Dee Dee sharing another story with you from the internet. This one is from Reddit, Banjo, titled Sasquatch Destroyed My Family's House. A lot of people are going to view this story as creative writing. It isn't. For many people that have traumatic experiences,
Can y'all
there
not
are
hear
plenty
that?
of outlets and support groups. Not for me.
Negatory.
Everybody
Hold on, I have to switch mics back again. Hold on. Thanks, Phoebe.
calls me a crackpot on the few occasions I get drunk enough to talk about what happened. And I don't appreciate that. This is a real story and a real event that caused a lot of turmoil in my family at the time. We were a small family. When I was 12 years old, me, my dad, and my mom lived in and managed a large deer lease in Arkansas near the town of Mena. My dad and I were skilled outdoorsmen and made a good chunk of change hunting pigs on horseback. Their population had grown out of control at that time, and they were viewed as pests. Not only did you not need tags to hunt them, but you could get paid on up to $50 per pig. The meat is great for sausage too. So it comes as a surprise to my father and I when the pigs around our property suddenly began to vanish. At first, we thought it was our neighbor 20 miles west, strong-arming our profits with his sons as he had before. But after my father went to his ranch to confront him about this issue, he came back ashen-faced and wouldn't tell me or my mother what had been discussed. All he said was Bill wasn't the reason for the shortage in pigs, and that me and my mother were to stay in the house. Of course, being the curious young retard I was, I woke up before my dad, saddled my horse, and went into the woods. I rode the perimeter of our property, and as before, I didn't find a single pig, but I did find something else. At about noon, I came to a large clearing in the forest. Then, clear as day, what I first thought was a child stepped out right in front of my horse and I. I quickly realized this was no normal child. As it stood staring at me, I noticed that although it had a very human-like face, with what I can only describe as slightly mongoloid features, it was covered in black, dark brown fur or hair We just stared intently at each other for what felt like an eternity. Then I heard something huge crashing through the forest in our direction. Without the slightest command from me, my horse bolted in the opposite direction. I could hear it, hot on our heels, snarling and screaming. Eventually, we got some ground on whatever it was when we hit open meadow, and it abandoned the chase. When I got home, my dad wasn't furious at me.
Okay, people, don't say nothing until I switch my mic back, or you're going to get a really bad echo. Okay, two things I noticed about that. One is he said that the neighbor had a ranch, which means it's probably 20 miles to the house, but that guy could own a big piece of land as well. So, you know, there's no telling exactly how far away the one house to the other was. And the other thing was evidently, this was he said a child. So that was smaller. It couldn't have been a juvenile. So this must have been a family unit, at least one family unit, maybe two family units together. And the big one was probably the mother coming out because the little one was being faced down by a human on a horse.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I gathered that as well. He described the child as looking, and I loved that description, looking like a mongoloid covered in black fur, and then heard the large crashes, which, right, Rick, I concur, probably was the mother female coming after its child that was, being chased down by a human on a horse.
Yeah, and that changes things a lot. So obviously it's not rogue males. I mean, this is a large family unit that took and ate a little kid.
Yeah, and we've heard of these stories where, where the large family units are seen, they're sneaky as well. I mean, it's a family unit, and they want to survive just as we want to survive.
What do y'all think it may have been a setup by putting the child out in front of the one kid, the 15-year-old kid on a horse?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so because the other Bigfoot would have been right there to pounce on the kid, and he heard it coming through the woods.
Yeah, coming through the woods as if it was realized that its own child was in the crosshairs of a human on a horse. So I don't think it was a setup either, but I think that they're probably capable of doing like a triangulation and setting somebody up, but I don't think this is a case of a setup.
Yeah, and to answer Phoebe's question, Phoebe's mic is not working, so I'm going to read what she has in chat. She said maybe one of the hunters leasing was killing Bigfoot and young ones at that. So, I mean, possibly, but Bigfoot are notorious for being able to chase a person down for miles and miles and miles, follow them back to their home to take retribution. So if it was a hunter, I would think that it wouldn't have gone after this other guy's family unless he was the one that was shooting at Bigfoot out there.
Yeah, or if the hunter that was killing, or if hunters were killing him were staying at that house. Yeah.
True.
Yes, that is well documented. That is well documented, Rick. That's a good point to bring up. It's well documented that they'll chase back to a homestead to wreak retribution.
All right, folks, I have to hit the head, so continue amongst yourself while I'm gone. I'll be right back.
Does this sound crazy to me, guys? The whole thing sounds like the Sasquatch. It's a territorial thing. It sounds like the Sasquatch don't want the humans around in that particular area.
Well, I would think that, humanity has probably been in that area for millennia, for how long? So I don't know why this would all of a sudden be an isolated case, or if this is just the only one we're hearing about.
Basically, it sounds like they found a place that suited them very fine. They had all those pigs, and it's a deer lease, all that food that they could have, and they wanted to get the humans out of there. But then the food started going dry on them, and they wanted to basically subsidize their diet with maybe the children.
Pretty
That
much.
could be. That could be. And then the other thing I was just thinking of, y'all, was what may have been going through. I mean, not that we would know what be going through one of their minds, but if that was a mother or, whatever family member it was coming after the little one that was face off with the 12-year-old and the horse, were they maybe feeling panic like, oh no, now they're coming to get one of us? We took one of theirs.
Well, yeah, that's what we were just saying. That's what Rick and I were just saying. That very same thing. It sounds like that female Squatch possibly was in a panic situation when it realized that its own youngster was in the path of a human on a horse. Yeah, but I'll tell you, of this whole story, what doesn't fit is why the Squatch went up to the back porch and snapped that child. I mean, that's the whole thing that doesn't fit.
Opportunity. It
Yeah,
saw opportunity and took it.
Well, I would love to know what triggered that. Maybe something triggered it.
Not
And
gross,
but yeah, it could have been just opportunity. It could have.
not to be gross, but don't they say that human flesh tastes a lot like pork?
Yep.
I don't know, but yeah, I mean,
They've been taking kids for years and years and years and years. It's not like it's something new.
yeah, it's not nothing new. And Teresa or little T, more than years, for centuries they've been taking human children.
Well, think of it this way. Before this country was made a country, before they started settling the New World, you had the American Indians here, and they have stories of their children and women of their tribe being taken.
Yeah, that's why I was referring to centuries and centuries. Exactly that. The Native American accounts. That's why I said centuries and centuries. It literally goes back centuries and centuries.
Well, it literally goes back thousands of years because they have cave drawings of Bigfoots.
Yeah, thousands of years. That's right. And I was just studying that yesterday, and I was just studying that, and some of them caves in Northern California in the Sierras, and yeah, I mean, thousands of years.
At least they've known about them.
Yeah, it makes you wonder that, I guess if the opportunity presents itself that, yeah, I guess that child was on the menu. I mean, I guess that's one theory of it. I would love to know what initially would have triggered that.
Hunger.
Do we all think that yes? Do we all think that yes? It was just a circumstance of opportunity, or was there something that originally triggered it?
Hunger.
I'm sure it's not the first time that it's happened that group has done so.
No, I would say absolutely not. I don't think. Well, actually, no. Let me take that back. The fact that this was a child. Now, from the description, I'm assuming a toddler. And the fact that they would take a toddler like that means that maybe they were testing the waters. They were getting hungry, and they said, hey, you know what? That's a tasty little morsel up there on that deck, and nobody's around. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, are they truly cannibalistic like that? I'm sure they probably could be. Hunger in nature.
How can that be construed as cannibalistic? Or at least for me, when you say that, then that means you're eating your own species. And
exactly.
They're right.
Yeah. Teresa, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Darcy.
Because I would think as a species, as a Squatch, I would think that they're not going to have any, if they're hungry, they're so well developed, they're not going to have any problem getting game at all. So, I mean, do we all think that there was absolutely no game in the area anywhere? I mean, that's hard to believe.
Well,
I would think as a species that they're going to get game. They know how to get game. If they want a deer, a turkey, or, you know, whatever, they're going to get
their game.
Yeah, but their calorie intake has to be a lot for their size, and they're talking about 8 grown Sasquatch came and attacked the house, and that's just 8 of them. That's not including the mates and the children, and that would take a lot of calories they would have to take in to maintain.
Well, here's the thing. They talked about how the guy talked about the pig population. He never said anything about the deer population. So, and they were concerned about the pig population diminishing, but he never said anything about the deer population. Maybe at this particular time, which is what my assumption is, the deer, for whatever reason, were not around, and they were completely relying on the income they were getting from their pigs. That's why they were so concerned about it. And if that's the case, that would explain the Sasquatch only going after the pig, and once the pig were all ate out, you know, they went after the kid.
Yeah, maybe to take a kid and unfortunately eat on a kid. But for the 8 Squatch, I mean, it almost sounds like a case of retaliation. They were pissed for some reason, but you're right, Rick. I mean, if they wipe the pigs out, I mean, that's just it. We don't know. Would they take a child in that case? They're probably very well capable of doing that.
I think it depends on how easy it was to get the kid, really. I mean, Phoebe brings up a good point here in the chat. Why wouldn't they just go after the horses? It's a good point. Unless the kid was just right there, you know, Bigfoot would happen to be, maybe the wood line was within 10 feet of the porch, and the Bigfoot was walking by and went, huh, just snatched him up, said there's something to eat on while I'm going over to meet my friends, you know, like somebody grabbing a turkey leg off the kitchen table or whatever as he goes by.
You know, they don't consider us like an equal or anything. We are prey to them. We are prey.
Well, in some situations, but ultimately, Teresa, if I'm going to go in the woods and cut down on a Squatch and take a team in, we're going to wipe anything out in our path. That's humanity.
Super Freak, were you trying to say something a minute ago?
Oh, no, I was just saying the same thing Teresa said.
Yeah, that we're prey. Yeah.
We're their prey. An animal will take anything and consider it its prey if it's hungry.
Yeah, and I mean, if the kid's right there and it's easy enough to snatch him up, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's no different than walking by and grabbing a snack off the table as you're walking through the kitchen, you know?
People's got to quit thinking that because we're human, we're at the top of the totem pole, you know? Because we're not.
No,
and we're definitely.
Go ahead, Darcy.
I said we're part of their food chain. I think they're opportunity eaters. They're going to eat anything they come upon.
I think that we're a last resort because I think they see us, like I've said in my video, I think that they see us as being equally as vicious as them and a much more formidable opponent that they would rather not mess with. But I think opportunistic wise, like I said, if he's walking by and, ooh, there's a kid, he's going to pick it up and eat it. That's just the way it is because we are still prey and there's no big ones or big humans around to protect the kid. He's just going to snatch the kid up.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly right, Rick. Opportunistic. But you all, Teresa, you just made the comment. Are you trying to tell me you don't think humanity can go into nature on this planet and totally annihilate it, wipe it out? Ain't going to be nothing left. Totally annihilate it and wipe it out.
Yeah, and when you do that, I'm sorry, Super Freak, go ahead.
So yeah, they could, but what does that matter? What does that have to do with the situation?
The only time, no,
Right.
the only time you talk about who's prey and who's the alpha out of it and everything. When you're the alpha when you're the only one left standing there, and that is the only reason you're considered an alpha. And that could go either way.
Yeah, and humanity has the ability to do that, to go in and just kill everything on the face of the planet, everything.
That's ridiculous. Nobody should talk like that. I'm sorry, Rex, but I think that's terrible.
Well, no. I don't want to see that for anything. I don't want to see anything killed, but I'm just saying that's the nature of humanity. As a species, we have brought ourselves to the capability of doing that.
It's only because we have the ability to use tools and build tools. If we didn't have those tools, we'd be cowering in a cave when the Bigfoot roamed the forest.
Yeah.
But Rick, that's exactly right. And
they're probably waiting for that opportunity. They're probably waiting for the opportunity for us to just kill ourselves out and take over again.
There's only
stand it after we're gone, I guarantee.
Go ahead, Ralph.
There's only one tool that mankind has that would make us an alpha in any situation, and that is the boomstick or firearms.
Yeah, but it's our intelligence and our ability to create those things is the only reason that we are where we are, as opposed to Bigfoot. Without that, we're still at the top of the food chain, even with lions and tigers. Well, I don't know, probably not. I mean, with spears, I guess is how we defeated like those kind of animals, predators. But let's say without spears, I mean, you've never seen a Bigfoot use a spear, supposedly. Anyway, we've never heard about it yet. If we weren't using spears and stuff, I think that we would be gone. We wouldn't even be on the planet right now.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't. Exactly right, Rick. That's exactly right. Our mind and our intelligence is what set that bar. That's exactly right.
And that's what terrifies me about Bigfoot, is because I think that their intelligence is not quite ours, but they're far above any other creature on the planet, and they're much closer to us than any other creature on the planet. And according to stick structures and the fact that they throw rocks and they beat rocks together, and some people even said that they've found out that Bigfoot have smashed rocks together to make sharp edges for like knives and stuff. They're not that far behind us, and all they have to do is figure out how to make, like, say, a longbow and arrows, and we're in some serious trouble.
Well, they know how to strategize. They know how to do a lot of things that we do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they know how to strategize, and they have their family units, and they definitely know how to do that. And
I just, as far as their intelligence is concerned, I really do believe you give a little more time to pass, and they're going to be right up there with us.
Well, they also have the benefit of observing an extremely intelligent and successful species, and that scares me too, because we had to learn this stuff on our own. Our intelligence had to come along as we evolved. They can make a shortcut as soon as they get smart enough to start copying us in some of the building that we do and that kind of stuff. They're gonna grow in leaps and bounds beyond what they would have if we weren't on the planet.
Exactly.
Yeah, most definitely. And we know that they observe. And, I think it's well known that we're probably their entertainment. We all have our entertainment. Humanity is probably their entertainment. And they have no qualms about coming in late at night, and we know how sneaky they can be. They'll come next to cars and come around buildings, and they have no qualms about that.
Well, I think that we're on the cusp. And this is why some people make fun of me talking about the Planet of the Apes type scenario with Bigfoot. which is localized, not planet-wide, in my opinion. But the reason that I believe that is because they do observe us. They have, I mean, we've heard how many people talk about them trying to open doors. We've heard about, I've heard at least one encounter where a guy said the thing opened the car door or his truck door and went inside of his vehicle. You know, I mean, so they are learning. They're learning how to use our machinery and our inventions. And it's only a matter of time before they figure out how to use that information to their advantage. They haven't put that connection in there yet.
That's why they're so curious. That's how they learn. It's not, it's not like they're standing there like a dumb animal and just watching what you're doing. They're learning. Every time they watch, they're learning.
Well, all animals do that. Have you ever seen the video of the pig that they filmed it, and it was ciphering how to get out of the pen they had it in, and it jumps up on the side of the wall and then walks across the pen thing and then jumps back down, and you could actually see it looking, and it's saying, okay, if I go there and then I go there, then I go there, I can get over there. That's a pig, for crying out loud. Now we're talking about a Bigfoot, which is an order of magnitude more intelligent than a pig. It's only a matter of time before they start building stuff. I mean, I'm talking like we did back in the Pleistocene, caveman days, when we started, building, say, primitive huts and, let's say teepees, that kind of thing, building primitive weaponry and tools like that.
Hey, how is it smarter than a pig? They've had people teaching pigs how to ride scooters. I ain't never seen anybody teach a Bigfoot how to ride a scooter.
I didn't say that they... look, I'm talking about their natural intelligence, not what they do know. I think Bigfoot are capable of more than a pig because they are more intelligent. I mean, if we can get a Bigfoot and we could teach it things, I'm sure we could teach it to be a butler.
Sure, I don't think we'll have a hairy scientist anytime soon, but yeah, I mean, it could be, I'm sure it could learn a lot more than what a basic animal.
I would bet that if you had a Bigfoot, let's say you had a Bigfoot on your ranch, for instance, that you could train the thing to feed the cows, to muck the stalls, and all of the kind of things that you would hire a minimum wage hired hand for, those kind of things. I think a Bigfoot would learn quickly and be able to do quickly. Like the Planet of the Apes. I mean, I don't know about the newer one, but the old one, that's what they were originally used for when they revolted, was they were used as primitive slaves, basically. And I think that a Bigfoot is at that intelligence now. You could train him to do... I mean, you can train a monkey. Have you seen the video of the monkey that works in a restaurant and it goes and gets people beers and stuff?
Oh yeah, Rick, that's 100%, bro. Yeah, I believe they have the intelligence to be able to handle those tasks. I believe that could, I believe that is possible.
I would love to be inside their mind.
I wouldn't, because that would mean that you were nutrition and you were good. You were a bowel movement.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
You know what I mean. I really would. I just to be able to get inside their mind and realize how they really think and everything.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I was just messing with you. Did y'all see the picture I put in the chat? That is the house that the guy put, that I don't know if Dee Dee got it directly or if it was on the Reddit post, but that was the house that they tore apart. That's the one that the kid lived in.
I got to say,
is that the back door or the front door? Do we know?
I don't know. I'm assuming front door.
No, that there. Oh yeah, it might be.
Not to interrupt y'all, Teresa had to go. Just to let y'all know, she said to tell everybody Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, yeah. So Rick, so that pic there, that's the actual house there.
Yeah, I when I heard the story, I'm like, what is he living in a shed? And then Dee Dee sent me the picture. I was like, oh, that's not bad at all, really.
Yeah, I mean that looks like it would possibly be the front because you see the little. It looks like the little drive, the pull up, the little parking area there with the gravel, and then that would be like the front porch.
Well, that and all the windows there. That looks like the entry in the living room.
Can you
Yeah,
imagine how loud that must have been when they were hailing humming those rocks? It's one thing for it to be like a metal roof, but a metal house.
yeah, no
Yeah, no
doubt.
doubt.
Anybody ever been in a barn when it's pouring down hard rain on that tin roof?
I have a
Yeah,
tin roof. This sounds lovely.
I see the Darcy. You sound like my wife. She loves the rain. I love the sunshine. She loves the rain. But I see the metal roof there.
Yeah, I want to say something. Unless you've encountered one, and I have to tell you, they're very imposing. And if you have a gun or rifle handy, I have to tell you, you feel threatened when you see one. And I can't say for sure that I wouldn't have shot if I had a gun in my hand that day.
Yeah, but and I feel the same. I don't want to kill anything,
No, I
and
wouldn't
I'm sure you would.
do either, but they're
Dar- Dar-
intimidating and they're
yeah,
huge.
yeah, Darcy. I'm sure you wouldn't have shot if it wasn't threatening you. But on the same token, I say that. Having said that, I'm not going to be a victim either. I'll cut anything down that comes at me or comes in my path, and I got the arsenal to do it. But I'm not. I don't
And
want to shoot or just.
honestly,
I don't want to shoot or just willy nilly kill anything.
I don't believe anything should be shot, but I'm just saying, I'm playing devil's advocate. If you see one and you come across one and you're armed, your first instinct is either fight or flight, and you don't know how you're going to react.
Well, actually, trained anyone who's trained with weapons, I've heard many people who have talked about being out hunting or whatever, and their reaction is, "There's no way I was going to shoot that thing because I didn't have enough gun." The only people that would do that is people who don't understand that they don't have enough gun.
Exactly. Exactly. And
And
I
I
guess,
told you I didn't think I had enough gun power over here.
yeah, and then also I guess different humans get more scared than others. I guess the situation would warrant itself. If I would, just to see one, have the encounter with no threatening circumstance, would I want to cut down on it? No. But if my life was threatened, trust me, I'm laying it out.
You know what I just realized? And tell me if I'm wrong. Didn't they say it was 2 a.m. when they went in the cellar and they weren't finished? They didn't finally leave till 10 a.m. Is that 8 hours they were down there?
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
Can you imagine? Unbelievable.
Well, I'm going to say this. You know, I was 16 years old and one at 15 to 20 feet, and I had a 30-30 rifle. And I didn't feel that wasn't enough gun, but and I was able to shoot it. I mean, at that distance, it would put a hole through where I was aiming, and it was at its head. There was no way I was going to shoot through the chest. I intended to shoot it through the head. If it would have come closer, I would have shot it because it was threatening. But when you're sitting there looking at one at that distance, I didn't have any thought of not having enough gun. I just had a thought of which one of us is going to live through this.
Yeah, just so you know, I've actually had a discussion, which will be in a future episode, with somebody who says he was in special ops and took one of these things down in Rogue, and he said that it was taken down with a single 223 shot through the side of the chest, through the side of the chest.
Yeah, Rick, I'm glad you brought that up because I was studying ammunition ballistics just earlier tonight. I was studying it when I got off work, and yes, it's possible. That is very, yes, that's very real. And you're gonna try to get him on.
That's a discussion for another time. I just wanted to throw that in there that he had mentioned that the kill shot was a 223 round through the side of the ribs.
Yeah, and that's one of the lightest of the 30 cal, and so
And it's not a 30, it's a 22. It's a M16 223.
yeah, 223, brother, is a 30 caliber though. That's a 30 caliber round.
No, it's a 22.
Oh my god.
22, buddy.
How many people have those kind of big guns and carries them? You know, like I mean, how many? The average person.
Well, a 223 has a heavier load. I mean, so, and it's designed to bounce and tear flesh up and stuff like that. And you know, the military uses armor piercing or jacketed rounds, really, and so they're going to penetrate a lot better than a regular 22 would. A regular 22 ain't going to put a dent in the thing. It'd probably just fall out of his fur. But yeah, the regular person's not going to have it. Well, you can get those kind of rounds, I guess.
But why would an average person really have something like that and on a regular basis when they go into the woods and stuff?
A lot of people have that, and they have bigger guns than that.
Yeah, Teresa, that's a popular hunting cartridge. Yeah, a lot of people have that.
Okay.
But I think what Teresa's trying to say is, why would anyone have a steel jacket or full metal jacket bullet like the military carries? And most people, when they go in the woods, are carrying lead core bullets, surrounded by, you know, brass, and I mean, that's what she's talking about, guys.
Well, the only way that a 223 is going to penetrate is if it's a jacketed round. But a 30-30, a 30-06, you know, something like that is gonna mess him up if an M16 round will take him down. A 45-70 would definitely just probably hollow his ass out. Oh, nice work, damn it. Assuming the kill shot was from the side of the ribs. That makes sense to me. You try to take him head on through all that pectoral muscle and abdominal muscle wall and all that stuff. The side of the ribs is obviously a very thin area when you come to muscle tissue. I mean, you can touch yourself on the side and feel your ribs. Did I get disconnected from everybody? Why is it so quiet all of a sudden?
Well, I'm just thinking.
Me too.
Yeah, old bear, you're right. That 30-30 you had, that has almost 3 times the stopping power as a 223. Definitely. So yeah, you definitely had it.
Yeah, and back then you didn't have a big choice in bullets, and Dad would buy us the 180 grain bullet for the 30-30s at all times, and they were open sighted, but at 15 to 20 feet, 180 grain bullet going through the cranium, yeah, that would stop it in a heartbeat. But the problem is, what about the rest of them that are in the area?
Yeah, that's the challenge right there. I also want to throw out there that I have recently, I don't know, it might have been something I played on the show. I'm not remembering at the moment where I heard it, but there was a story where a guy said that one was peeking from behind a tree, or he knew something was hiding behind a tree, and he fired at the tree to scare it off. And he missed the tree, and right as the bullet went by, the thing had peeked out to the side, and he hit it in the cheek right below the eye, and the thing dropped instantly. So evidently there's another weak spot.
Yeah. Hey, old bear, what time frame was that? Was that mid 70s for you?
No, that was back in the middle 80s, about 83.
Yeah, yeah. Where was that? West Virginia?
Yep, I was here in West Virginia. Middle western.
Yeah, right on. Did you ever research that area where you had your encounter go down? I mean, is that a rich? Does that area have a rich history in activity?
Yes, I did research the area, and there wasn't a lot about it in the newspapers or anything. Uh, the newspapers I looked up 50 years old or was as far as I could get back with newspapers because they didn't keep records like that. Um, but by word of mouth, asking old timers and guys who's in their 70s and 80s, yeah, they said they had quite a few reports of people seeing them back then when they were kids.
Okay, folks. Well, we've been running for an hour and a half. I'm going to go ahead and shut down the show. And I just wanted to wish y'all a happy Thanksgiving. And we will continue to discuss things in Discord. Discord is up in there for y'all to join and talk 24/7. But as far as the show goes on YouTube, until the next time, y'all take it easy.
Happy Thanksgiving, Rick.
Happy Turkey Day.